proceed to the cutting of our sleeve, I went ahead to draw a rough sketch. That is, we have from the nape of the neck to the shoulder extension. I call it the shoulder extension because you've added extra to it. Like mine, I've added extra 3.5 inches to the shoulder. So if you had 3.5 inches to 7.5, remember my back is 15, which is 7.5. If you have 3.5 inches to it, you have 11 inches. So the sleeve length I'm working with is 28. So sleeve length 28 inches. So when you deduct 11 from 28, you'll be left with 17 inches. That means you're left with 17 inches for the ruffled part of the sleeve, this part of the sleeve. And looking at this, it has a tiered, is more or less like a tiered sleeve. We have 3 steps tiered, and there is an underlay under the sleeve, the tiered of the sleeve. So if you have 17 inches to calculate the tiers, you need a calculator. So here I'll be using this. So if you have 17 and we have 3 steps flare, this step, we have step 1, step 2, step 3, and another one underneath. So for the underneath one, the first thing you're going to do is, after you've deducted, if you've deducted 11 inches from the sleeve length 28 and got 17 inches, this 17, you're going to determine the length of the tiered. That means how long you want each tiered to be. Like for this now, we have 3 steps. You can decide to make this divided by 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you understand? So this is divided by 4. So if you divide 17 inches by 4, I got 4.25, which implies that each tier of this sleeve should be 4.25 inches. So that means if this is the underlay is meant to be 17 inches. So if this is the underlay, then we have the first tier like this, then the second tier like this, and the third tier like this. Sorry, I'll be studying this part so we can understand much more better. So here is the length of the underlay. The underlay is going to have an elastic. So for that reason, you'll be adding extra 2 to 3 inches to this part so that the elastic effect can come out much more finer on the sleeve. So this, we have 17 inches initially from here to here. So because of the elastic, I'll be adding extra 3 inches to it. Remember, you need 1 inch for the elastic casing. So that means if I want to cut out the underlay, I'll cut out 20 inches plus ½ inch seam allowance to join it to this part of the body. So that means I'll be cutting 20 inches length for the underlay of the sleeve. Then for the tiered, I said each layer is 4.25, 4.25, 4.25. But remember, this one will be attached to this upper part, and you're going to hem the lower part. You're going to sew that part in. You turn the lower part in to conceal the rough edges. So you need 1 inch to sew it in at this part and ½ inch to join it to the main body. So if you want to cut this, you're going to cut out 4.25 plus 1.5, 1 inch, ½ inch. That's for the first tier. I don't know if you can see it, probably it's too faint. I'll be using a pen so you can see it much more better. So here we have 4.25 plus 1.5 So you're going to have 5.75 for the first tier. Now for the second tier, I want you to pay more attention to the second tier and the third tier respectively. So for the second tier, you have 4.25 plus 1.5. Boys, the case is a little bit different for the second and third tier. All you need to do is this 4.25, you're going to extend this inward by, let's say, 2 inches. So these will overlap so that the first tier can overlap the second tier. So this will go in by 1.5 to 2 inches inward, just for you to conceal the stitches there, the rough edges there. So you go ahead and add 2 inches. Remember, you're going in by 2 inches plus the length that you want. This is the 2 inches. The length you need is 4.25. So 2 plus 4.25 will give you 6.25 plus your seam allowance. The seam allowance you need there is just 1 inch, because you're not going to hold this part and also attaching this to any other. You're going to sew directly on it. So plus 1 inch at the hem. So that means you'll be cutting out 7.25 inches for the second tier. Now for the third tier, the case of the third tier is similar to that of the second tier, because the second tier is going to overlap the third tier. That means there will be an extension of 2 inches inward. So this will go in by 2 inches. These 2 inches inward. So 2 plus 4.25, which is the length you need outside. So that will give you 6.25. Remember, you need 1 inch for the hemming at the edge here. So plus 1, that should give us 7.25. So you're going to be cutting 5.75 inches for the first tier, 7.25 for the second tier and third tier. So now go ahead and place my fabric for you to see. I'll just go ahead and chalk it out and cut. But you need to understand this step perfectly before you can proceed into the next step. Okay. So I've gone ahead to press down the button, the overlap, the button extension. That's the 2 inches. I left the overlap with the main bodies because that part you're not going to touch it. So the interfacing with the underlay, which is 2 inches, I went ahead and fold it inside. This 2 inches, 1, 2. So I went ahead and fold it in. So I fold it to the right side of the fabric because this is the right side of my bodies. So this is the right side of the fabric. So I'll go ahead and fold this part inside. Remember, we have 1 inch. So you're going to fold it into 2 equal halves like this. Then I'll sew it down. I've gone ahead and sew the button extension down. Remember, I said I folded it to the front. You can see. Can you see the crease line I have there? So I folded it to the front for the right side. Then for the left side, on the left side, this is the right side of the left bodies. So for this other part, you're going to sew it from the wrong side. It will be a little bit difficult for you to differentiate between the front and the back here because they almost look alike, but I know they are not the same. But it won't be showing to you on the camera. So what I'm going to do now is to fold this part in like this. Not like this. Still the same 2 inches. I have 2 inches here. So this 2 inches from here to here, can you see? So I'll go ahead and fold it. This is the wrong side. So I'll fold it inside like this. And I'll sew it all the way down on the edge here. And when I'm done sewing, I'll show you what it looks like. So as you can see, this is the other side. I just finished sewing. This is the wrong side. I've gone ahead and sewed the button extension down. So this is the one that is going to overlap this. So the buttons will be attached to this part, and this will have the button holes. So for designing purpose, I'll go ahead and give this part another sewing, just for decorative stitch, a decorative stitch on this part. So I'll sew it down. So when I'm done sewing it, I'll go ahead and join the shoulders together, and I'll show you on the cutting table. So ladies, I've gone ahead to join the shoulder seam together. Can you see, with half an inch? Remember, that's the same amount as you're working with. So if I turn this to the right side, remember I told us the right side is going to overlap the left side. So it's going to look like this. So your buttons will be on this part. Can you see it? I've gone ahead to press it down. So the next thing I'll be showing us is how to cut out the sleeve. All you need to do is to measure all the way from this part to this part to get the width of the sleeve, which is 21 inches. So you're going to write it down. The width of the sleeve is 21 inches or 21. So if the width is 21 inches, that means the underlay, remember I told us about the underlay that is going to have the elastic around the wrist, is 20 inches long without half inch. So by the time you add half inch, the underlay is actually 17 inches. We added half inch to join it to this part, then 3 inches for the elastic and for the puff. So that means we'll be adding 3.5 inches to 17. That will give us 20.5 inches. That's the length of the sleeve. The width of the tiers, each tiers is going to be 21 times 1.5, which is 31.5. That means the length will be 21.5. So by the time you gather this together, it's going to fit in to this. I hope you understand. So I'll go ahead now and cut it. That means for the first tier, please, I want you to write it down so you won't mix it up. The length is 5.75 and the width is 31.5. For the second tier, the length is 7.25 and the width is 31.5 as well. Then for the third tier, we have 7.25 by 31.5. So ladies, now we go ahead and cut out on the fabric. So as you can see, I've gone ahead to cut out the underlay for the sleeve. This is where I'll be attaching the elastic. And the tiers, this is the first tier, the second. So the next thing I'll be showing us is how to place the tiers perfectly on this underlay. So this is our underlay. Remember I said earlier that we want each tier to be 4.25 inches long on each on the underlay. So if you want this part to be 4.25, remember you have half inch seam on this part. So this is the half inch. You can mark it down. That's where you're going to be sewing to your main bodies. So this is the half inch. So I'll go ahead and rule it across. So I'm going to have to rule down the half inch seam. Then the next thing for you is to mark down the 4.25 that you need. This is 4.25, and you mark it across, which means that that's where the first tier is going to stop. The first tier won't exit this line. Now remember when we were doing our calculation, I said I want each tier to overlap by 2 inches. That means it will go in by 2 inches. So what you're going to do now is this. So that 2 inches plus 4.25, that's 6.25. You first of all go in by 2 inches from here. I'll prefer to use another marker, another colored of chalk, so we can get it more better. The chalk, remember I said it's going to overlap by 2 inches. So this is 2 inches. Yours might not be as long as this, but because I don't want my seams to show, that's why I went in by 2 inches. So the first tier is going to overlap the second tier by 2 inches. So remember I said the length for the second tier is 4.25. This is 4.25. I've gone ahead to mark it across. So the second tier is going to overlap the third tier by 2 inches as well. So I'll go up by 2 inches here and mark. Then I'll mark it across as well. So I'm gonna ahead to mark it across. Then the length for the third tier is 4.25, which is here. 4.25. Then I'll mark these across as well. So by the time you want to sew it, remember you're going to attach the first tier to this part. You're going to sew the first tier to this part. Then the second tier, you're going to place it here and sew it. The third tier, you sew it down, you place it on this part. So it's going to touch this place. I hope you understand now. So this part is going to have an elastic. Can you see? So now I'll go to the sewing machine to show us the next thing we're going to do. So ladies, I've gone ahead to gather this part. Can you see? I use a gathering foot. I don't know if you can see it very well. This is what a gathering foot looks like for industrial machine. You can see? So this is it. So when you want to use a gathering foot, you need to change your stitch line to gathers. This gathers for my own machine. I don't know for yours, but this is the longest stitch line on this machine, which is 5. So I'll go ahead and show you how you're going to do yours if you want to do it. So if you want to sew it down, you need to come down by 0.25 to 0.5 inch. So here I came down by, I think, 0.25. So can you see? Just leave it and make sure that you're maintaining the same seam line. You're not going front and back. Okay? Make sure your hands is straight. Okay. Can you see it? So I'll go ahead and do this for all the tiers and show you what it looks like when I'm done. So this is the sleeve, and as you can see, I've gone ahead to sew it down to the underlip. This is the first tier, this is the second tier, the third tier. You're going to place it on the chalk. It won't exit this chalk line. Can you see the mark of the chalk, which is there? So you make it match up with the chalk, with the markings there. So this is what you're going to have. So after doing this, then I'll go ahead and join it to the main bodies, which is here. So you go ahead and fix it like this on the main bodies. So So if you want to do this on your own, this side, you're going to place it like so. This is the longest one. We have 27.25. Then this is the one of 4.25. So the 4.25 will be attached to these parts. So this one will come, you're going to place this on the blue line here, on this line. Then you sew it all the way down. Then the same thing for this. You're going to sew it all the way down. So I'll repeat the same thing for this sleeve and attach it to the bodies. Then I'll come back to the table to show you how to cut the mandarin cover. So as you can see, I've gone ahead to attach the sleeve to the bodies. So this is the sleeve, these are the tears. So now go ahead and join the sides. So this is what you should have at the wrong side of your fabric. Can you see the wrong side? This is the sleeve wrong side. This is the main bodies. So I'll go ahead now and sew it down. Remember the seam allowance I added was ½ inch. So you now go ahead now and stitch it all the way around with ½ inch seam allowance to the hem. So when I'm done doing the stitching for both sides, I'll come back and show you how you're going to insert the rope casing to the dress. So I've gone ahead to hold my seam allowances. Can you see? All through to the hem. The next thing you're going to do now is to create an elastic casing. This is an elastic. But you need to create a casing for it. How are you going to go about that? All you need to do is to measure around your wrist, because the sleeve will get to somewhere around this part. Just measure it round. When I measured mine, I got 8 inches. So all you need to do is to deduct 1 inch from the round sleeve measurements you got. Just make sure you use your own measurements. So here I have 7 inches. That means I deducted just 1 inch from there. So to create the casing, you're going to fold in your seam allowance. Here I used 1 inch here. So I'll fold in 1 inch. This is my 1 inch. Then I'll start sewing. I like to direct the seam allowance to this side. So can you see? Then make sure you sew on 1 inch all the way around, because if you don't, it's going to be twisted. So when I get to, remember I started sewing from here, but you won't be able to see it because the thread is matching with the fabric. So this is why I started sewing. You're going to stop like 1 inch away from where you started sewing, just to create a casing for the elastic to pass through. So when I get to that part, I'll back stitch, then take out the dress. And I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other side. But before I repeat that, I want to complete this so that you can actually understand how to do about it. You need a safety pin. Most times I use 2. So just place one there and another one there. This is optional anyway, but this is the easiest method for me. So you're going to pass it all the way around the casing that you created. Then keep passing it, but make sure this one did not go into the casing. Okay. So I've gone ahead and passed the elastic around the sleeve. So I'll go ahead and remove the safety pins like so. So I haven't done that. I'll stitch this down, probably like ½ inch. So can you see I've held the elastic together. So you're going to pass this into the casing you created, then you stitch it down. And make sure you did not sew on the elastic, because if you do, is to restrict the elastic. So I'm done sewing, you can see. By the time you turn the sleeve inside out, this is what it's going to look like. Can you see? Can you see how beautiful it is? And the seams are concealed except if you lift it up. So I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other side. Then having done that, we'll go ahead to cut the waist rope casing. So for the waist, round waist elastic casing, all you need to do is to measure your waist length. I find out that for you to measure it from the shoulder, it's going to be a little bit difficult. So all you need to do is to remember the gown length I'm working with is gown length 36, and I added 1 inch to the hem, making 37 inches. This is 37, and my waist length is 16, which is there. But because I'll be adding 1 inch elastic casing, I decided to mark 15 inches, because if you mark it on 16, you find out that it will come down to 17 and it won't give you that much fittings. So just go up by 1 inch from your waist length line. So the casing is going to start from there. You're going to place it here, then sew it back to this place. It's not going up. Remember, it's 1 inch. So I'll cut it, I'll add interfacing and show you what it looks like. So I'm gonna have to cut the waist rope casing. This is it. The width is 2 inches. This is 2 inches. When I open it up, you have 2 inches. And I went ahead to add my interfacing to it for more stability. So if you turn it to the other side, and you can see I've pressed it in so that it will be very easy for me when I'm sewing it on the fabric. So what I need to do is to start from here, then tuck this part inside like this. Then remember I said you're going to place it like this, not like this. So you go ahead and place it like this, then sew it at this edge and this edge. Do not sew this part because that's where you're going to be inserting your rope. So I'll go ahead and sew it down and the rope. And for the rope, you can just cut a long strip, maybe about 40 inches longer than your actual waist measurement. So for instance, if your waist measurement is 28, you can make the strip 68 inches or 65. So either it's 40 inches longer or 37 inches longer than your actual waist measurement. So the width of the rope is going to be 1.5. Or you can make it 1 inch. Okay, make it 1 inch. So, but I think 1 inch might be too small. Make the width of the rope 2 inches on fold. So by the time you sew it down, you sew it like this, so you'll be left with half an inch. So I'll do that and show you when I'm done. So you can see I've placed the rope inside the rope casing here. So this is it. So by the time you tie it, you can tie it anyhow you want. I'll do like this. Like this. So you should have something like this. So the next one we're going to cut is the collar for the neck. I'll go ahead and sew the hem too. I'll fold it inside. I'll do this off the camera. Just fold in 1 inch like this and sew it round. Remember the same allowance added was 1 inch. So now I'll go ahead and show you how to cut the collar. So now we'll go ahead and cut out the collar, the round neck collar. How are you going to cut the mandarin collar? We call it the mandarin collar. Let me use the marker pen so you can see it very well. The mandarin collar. So if you want to cut this type of collar, the first thing you're going to do is to measure around the neckline. So you measure from one edge, from this part, round through to this side. And when I measured mine, I got 17 inches. So the 17 inches is without seam allowance. So and I want the height of the collar to be 1.5 inches. That's the height of the collar. So the round neck I'm working with now, the round neck I'm working with is 17 inches, and the height of the collar is 1.5. So if you want to fold it, you place the fabric on fold. I don't like to cut it straight. I prefer to cut it on bias so that it can sit well on your neckline. So to fold it on bias, remember the 17 inches is without seam allowance. So if you need seam allowance, you need ½ inch on both sides. So when you add ½ inch on both sides, that's 1 inch. That will make it 18 inches. So that means the round neck you're working with now is 18. So if you want to place it on bias, you divide 18 inches, you divide it by 3.14. So you're going to have 5.73. I'll approximate this to 5.75. That's to get the radius. So if you want to place it on fold, I'll be using this white pattern paper so you can see it clearly. So all I need to do is to place the fabric on fold like so. But because I'll be placing it on 2 fold, I won't be folding it on 4 fold like the normal flare that we do cut. I'll be folding it on just 2 fold. You're going to multiply this 5.75 by 2. So if you multiply 5.75, by 2, you have 11.5 inches. So what we need now, what we're going to do now is to place the fabric on fold diagonally like this. Can you see? This part must be 45 degree, 90 degree respectively. So what you're going to do now is to measure from this sharp edge and measure 11.5. So here we have 11.5, 11.5. You measure it all the way around. 11.5, 11.5. Then you go ahead and connect the lines together carefully. Can you see? So having done that, the next thing you're going to do is to measure around this part to be sure if it's up to 11.5 inches. If it's up to 9, remember if you divide 9 by 2, if you divide 18 inches by 2, you have 9 inches because this is on 2 fold. Okay, so if I measure it round now, this is 5, this is 6, this is 7, this is 8, this is 9. So I have 9 inches here. So this is 9 inches. The next thing you're going to do now, I'll use a bold marker then so you can see it more clearly. So like that. So now the height I'm working with is 1.5. So I'll go ahead and raise it up, not down. So you go up by 1.5. By so doing, it will make it more firm around the neckline. So this is 1.5. Mark it all the way around. So now make the connections like this. So this is my collar. Then I'll go ahead and cut it out. So can you see? So by the time you fix it around your neck, is going to sit properly like this around the neckline. So this is the upper part. You're going to attach this part to the neck, to the neckline of the fabric, of the main fabric, and this will be at the upper side. So I'll go ahead and transfer this to the fabric. Okay, now I've added seam allowance. I just feel like showing you this part. So I've added half inch to the upper part, half inch to the lower part as well. Remember I said I've added 1 inch to these parts, to the width. So there's no need of adding seam allowances to this part again. So I'll cut it out, and I place the fabric on fold. One will be the main fabric, and the other will be for the lining. This is it. Can you see? So now I'll go ahead and add my interfacing to this. So I'll show you when I'm done. I've gone ahead and sew it down, the collar round. Remember I added that thing seam allowance. I've sewn it down. So this is the upper part. I went ahead and notched it. I gave it some notches so it can relax by the time you turn it inside. Then this part, you sew this part to the back side. You're going to fix it like this. Remember this is the right side of the fabric. So you start sewing, you notch the center back. That's the center of your dress. You're going to fold it like this. You go ahead and fold like this, then you notch it at the center back. So here is my center back. Then you go ahead and fold this into 2 equal parts like this and notch. So what you're going to do is to match up the notch parts, And if you notice, I cut this straight, and when I sew it down, I gave it a slant curve there, a slight curve like this, just because that's the shape I want. So you can as well do yours like that too, like this. So when you turn it inside out, I like to trim out the bulk here. So you turn it inside out, and you give it a very good press. You're going to press it, and after pressing it, you sew it the way I just explained to you, like this. Then flip it to the front and sew. So by the time I'm done doing it, I'll display it on the body form for you to see. The beautiful gown is all ready. Can you see how neat it is? All you need to do is to take your time and fix the buttons very well. So before you can fix the buttons, you can measure from the collar down to the hem of the gown and divide it so it won't be scattered around the dress. And I'll show you what the back looks like now. So that's the back of the gown. So I believe you like it. And this comes to the end of our tutorial. So I can't wait to see your practical. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. If you like it, just give it a thumbs up. Bye.